I thought I understood him. I really did. At least that's what I told myself as we sat down for dinner that Friday evening. The table was small, cozy. Our favorite spot in the corner of the restaurant, with my best friend across from me. I had always teased him about how jealous he seemed whenever she was around. It felt harmless, a little joke, a tiny spark of fun in our otherwise predictable lives. He didn't protest that night, and that encouraged me. I let my teasings slip into more pointed comments, poking at imagined insecurities, expecting him to roll his eyes, maybe chuckle, maybe tell me to stop. He didn't, he just listened. And for the first time, the silence felt different. Not uncomfortable, not passive, but deliberate. My friend laughed along, oblivious to the tension that until now had always seemed invisible to me. I leaned back in my chair, satisfied with the balance of the conversation, convinced I was the one orchestrating the evening. He shifted slightly, a subtle tightening of his hands in his lap. I mistook it for hesitation, an insecurity I had seen so many times before. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, even measured. "It's not jealousy," he said. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted. "It's about respect." I laughed lightly, not because it was funny, but because I didn't understand. "Respect?" I echoed, expecting a defensive lecture, a flustered rebuttal. But it didn't come. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make a scene. He just looked at me and said, "Being turned into a joke in front of someone else, that's not something I can ignore. I don't mind your teasing at home, but here now, it's different." I blinked, confused. The weight of his words settled over the table. My friend's laughter faded, replaced by a quiet awareness. He wasn't demanding control. He wasn't trying to punish. He was defining a boundary, a line I hadn't realized existed. The realization hit me slowly in fragments. Every time I had laughed at him in front of others, every harmless tease had quietly chipped away at something I thought was unshakable: trust. I had been blind to the erosion, convinced that my playful provocations were nothing more than fun. But the truth was glaring now, impossible to ignore. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't storm out. He simply stated what mattered to him. And the clarity was more unsettling than any argument could have been. My friend shifted uncomfortably, sensing the gravity of a moment she hadn't caused but now witnessed. I felt a strange mix of shame and awareness. I had underestimated the weight of silence, the quiet power of someone who had always held themselves back in restraint. What I had thought of as weakness was strength, carefully measured, unshakable. He had been setting the rules all along. I just hadn't seen them. As the dinner continued, the conversation never returned to teasing. My words felt lighter, cautious, as if spoken through a filter I hadn't known I needed. The laughter that remained was different, careful, measured, aware of boundaries I hadn't acknowledged before. When we left the restaurant, the air between us felt quieter, denser. I didn't apologize out loud. The moment didn't need it. It wasn't about punishment or dramatic reconciliation. It was about realization, about seeing something that had been invisible. The playful balance I had thought I controlled was gone. It had been replaced by a subtle shift, almost imperceptible but undeniable. Later, I thought about all the small moments I had ignored. Every glance, every pause, every silent reaction. Now I understood that each had been a statement of principle. He wasn't jealous. He was careful. He was protecting something that could be quietly eroded by disrespect. Even in the guise of a joke, I went to bed that night with the weight of the evening settling into me. Not shameful, not bitter, but aware. Trust, I realized, doesn't collapse in a single act of betrayal. It dissolves slowly, in countless small interactions where one person feels unseen, where respect is assumed but not protected. The change wasn't dramatic and the marriage didn't fracture, but something fundamental shifted. I carried that awareness forward, noticing boundaries I had taken for granted, adjusting my humor, my teasing, my presence. The balance of power hadn't been shattered, it had been quietly redefined. And I knew as I lay awake in the dark that some lessons can never be unlearned. He hadn't won. I hadn't lost. We had simply discovered a new reality, one where respect and love required attention, vigilance and care, even in moments that seemed trivial. And that quiet, uncelebrated victory lingered, more lasting than any drama could ever have been.